Okay, hello everybody, it's Nick Dutch. Having a look at this book here. It's quite simply called Vegetarian Cooking Without. Recipes free from added gluten, sugar, yeast, dairy products, meat, fish, saturated fat. A lot of interesting information there, but also a few problems as well. The introductory sections of the book has got some interesting perspectives. Its author, Barbara Cousins, believes that foods have an effect upon the body. Okay, that's quite simple. That's easy for us to understand. She believes that some foods put toxicity into the body and some foods help to remove it. So the things which pushes it into the body includes rice, quinoa, millet, wheat, tea, coffee, alcohol, meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. So she seems to be calling a lot of things not necessarily all that good. And then she says that there's some types of food which pull toxicity out of the body. And of course, by now, because of the idea of in versus out, positive versus negative, you can tell she's got a dualistic interpretation of food. Okay, and later on she goes into a yin-yang type interpretation as well, which I think is quite interesting, but we'll go into that into a second. What she says pulls toxicity out of the body is beans, pulses, cooked vegetables, raw vegetables, salads, fruits, and juices. So she's someone who's encouraging a bit of a change of perspective. And she does talk about balance is required to keep good blood sugar stable. So she's a believer in diet as an important thing in blood sugar balances, but also detoxification. So she says that as you detoxify the body, you detoxify the mind. And there's a little diagram which she points to of one which is also like very self-driven, and the other part which is all very God-driven. So at that point, you start thinking that there's some parts of this book which are so far with the fairies, it's going to sprout wings any moment. And yeah, that's correct. Now, when she's talking about foods, I mean, some of it's quite interesting. If you think about it and you start putting her ideas of balance and equilibrium into effect, then you can see you'll be having quite a good, healthy diet, okay, and quite a good, healthy lifestyle as well, in terms of the right quantity of exercise and so on and so forth. As far as the forms of preparation and preservation, which she talks about, those which are yin, or cooling, include boiling, steaming, raw, juiced, frozen, and microwaved. So one assumes, therefore, that she's regarding those as being probably slightly better than other forms. And on the yang warming side of things, there's sweated, slowly simmered, pressure cooked, baked, fried, and salt packed. I notice she hasn't actually mentioned dehydrated there, which is something which kind of like grates against me to a certain degree, but never mind. Or maybe she did mention it and I just didn't notice it when I was taking my notes. Either way. So the idea is you find a balance between some foods which are boiled and some which are sweated, some which are steamed, some which are slowly simmered, some which are raw, some of which are pressure cooked, and so on and so forth. And that's so you can have balance and equilibrium in terms of your preparation and preservation. Okay. Now she moves on to the types of foods. Again, yin for cooling. That includes beans and pulses. You guessed, this is a lentil-eating vegetarian territory here, okay? Then vegetables, tofu, fruits and nuts, margarine and oils, and sugar and alcohol. Presumably that's the extremes. I mean, I've written down from the moderate level through to the extreme on her little scale that she's drawn. So beans and pulses are moderately cooling, and tons of alcohol is extremely cooling, presumably. Obviously, if you want to increase your yin, go out on the raz. Great. But on the other hand, it might kill you on the way. So that's not necessarily a good or positive thing. So bear that in mind. Okay, I'm not condoning chronic alcoholism. In fact, I'm very much against it. Right. Now, on the yang warming side of things, there's whole grains, fish, meats, cheese, eggs, and salt. So, from my point of view, it's rather interesting that some of the things I'm allergic to are actually mentioned on the yang side of things, like whole grains. I can't have wheat, so maybe there's an issue there. And also, eggs and cheese, I don't have those things, so maybe I've had too much yang in my life and I need to get much more yin, so to speak. So that's a possibility. But then, of course, she's crazy, because on one side of things she's saying, like, eat healthily to be healthy. But then she says there's a mental and emotional reason for allergies, when we all know that allergies themselves are an autoimmune disease. Okay, the immune system is reacting against something which it should regard as being healthy. It's the body being reprogrammed in a bad way. So it's not actually a mental and emotional reason for allergies. Admittedly, when you start to get healthy, your mind starts to clear up. So there's some aspects of this book which I do object to, but there's some aspects of it which are quite interesting. And yes, as far as working towards a more yin-yang balance with my foods is something which would make a lot of sense for me personally. So that's one direction that I'm going in. So balance, man, equilibrium. I'm a hippie in every possible way apart from fashion, and I'm glad of that last fact.